in real life. A lot of people, or let's say a lot of businessmen, are successful in the real life because they are street smarts. They have learned from the streets, whereas some idiots have just learned in the classroom, not looked out at how is it that real life is working. So later in life, what happens? People keep on chasing certificates for no effing reason, not genuine capability, just finding the shortcuts to go through the days, pass through the seasons, instead of building a long-term future for themselves, not having any depth from a skill perspective. And then if I talk about some other Asian countries, predominantly China, because probably the population they have had is much equal to ours. And if you look at the average life from prosperity perspective, is not starving very much. They're very focused on becoming the masters of the world, which they have, I think, in a lot of ways. Even Japan, for that matter, even South Korea. Yo guys, namaskaram. So in this video, I wanted to talk about long-term thinking. We throw this term a lot without understanding the real life context and nuance of it. And predominantly, I've seen that in India we hate long-term thinking. It's more of a cultural mindset thing, because I've also seen, let's say, NRIs, CEOs and all of that from an Indian origin still having the short-term thinking mindset, shortcut mindset, the jugadu mindset and all of that. So, and it percolates a lot in a lot of our fields where excellence is demanded from a long-term perspective. Be it sports, wherein we struggle with world-class athletes, be it our scientific fields, wherein we struggle with scientific innovations that would move the needle forward in technology and things like that. Any original thinker, for that matter, more from a philosophy perspective, who can just add nuanced layers to thinking, creating systems which are sustainable over the long term from an ecological perspective, and just having this attitude of long term planning. All of these things I mentioned are just some of the things, because right now you see a lot of issues with sports people, science, outrages, and whatnot happening each and every day in the country. When you need the newspaper, like, a lot of bizarre things are happening. So if you're watching this video, what can we do instead of just going into this rut and looking for shortcuts to fix things? I understand that the system that we live in, a lot of it is predominant on jugaads and short-term fixes and things like that, but this is more from building something for your own life from a long-term perspective. I just wanted to go a little bit deeper in this video, that why do we love shortcuts, hacks, be very fascinated by the quick successes, quick fame story, overnight fames, jugaad and all of that. It's just about going a little bit deeper in the mindset. So first, I feel the core problem is we are not trained to gratify ourselves in the long term. So there's a very famous marshmallow test experiment wherein certain kids are brought into a room, and certain kids are asked to eat the marshmallow after 2 minutes, and some were given the option to either wait or eat it immediately. If you wait for 2 to 3 minutes, probably you'll get more rewards, more sweets. So in that experiment, the children who waited for more than 2 minutes ended up eventually doing a lot better in life. But I think we are the first child who just likes to eat the marshmallow as soon as possible. Anyhow, we don't like thinking in decades, we like thinking in immediate results, that what would be the outcome of this. You might have seen in common language, let's say if one is pursuing music, I have a lot of musician friends. All of them have heard, how much money would you earn from this? You'll play in marriages and all of that. How soon would you earn? And does this have any long-term guarantee or not? So long-term thinking requires that you deal a lot with uncertainty, have a sort of patience, and just keep working at your craft day in and day out. And you have the ability to delay rewards after decades. So that's like a completely ball game altogether. So there's a very famous business YouTuber, Alex Hermosi, though he talks a lot from the American context, but a lot of his core message is around patience, thinking in decades and things like that. It's a very solid thing. And I think we need that thinking in our mindset as well, because right now, at least the people who are watching this are not so deprived of food, and they can think at least to reasonable level some long-term thinking. It's just that we go into these subtle patterns immediately. We want to pick up responsibilities, and then we just end up trading the long term for the short term. And if I come at the root of it, I think it's all driven by this scarcity mindset, which is at the root of every problem. That I would not even grow myself, and I would also keep others at my own level. I'll bring them down to my level. Our generations were shaped by poverty, a lot of instability, wherein we were forced to open our economies in 91, and due to that all of these companies were able to come in. A lot of survival based thing, a lot of survival pressure to just move from one day to another. And I feel a generational insecurity because a lot of dreams have been killed. Whatnot has been lost in the name of security, stability, and whatnot. And we see this culture still now, the feudalistic culture, that the people who are down there in the dumps, we just like to keep exploiting them. The exploiters love to keep on exploiting the people who are down in the hierarchy, be it in any field. You see the people who are on the top, everyone aims to be on the top so that they can exploit, they can involve themselves in corruption and things like that. But anyhow, what this does, this scarcity mindset, this creates a sense of aversion wherein we'll just avoid risks, healthy risk taking. We fear experimenting with our lives, any gap years for our dreams or anything. That would just come with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of stress, psychological stress, and whatnot. And we are obsessed with safety, with a predictable life of sorts. Long term thinking feels dangerous in our culture specifically because it requires an abundance mindset wherein we just think from a positive value sum creation mindset. I've seen a lot of people claim or take pride in their ability to do these jugards, quick fixes, and whatnot. We love this mindset of jugaad because it gives instant relief, quick wins, social validation from our immediate environment that now we have won. Let's say if you're in CEO, some idiots would clap, oh, what a jugadu solution and all of that. But in the long term, he'll just end up creating so many problems that these people have this habit of blaming others to clean their mess. But it also has this dark side which comes in the long term. It avoids system, responsibility, a sort of discipline in life and a structure that would come if you're following a path which is the most resistant in the short term. We like taking the path of least resistance. There's a famous thing that it can solve today's problem, but it just steals from tomorrow, because tomorrow, whatever fixes you're doing right now, there would be a long term impact which would take maybe even double or triple the time to fix whatever mess you're creating right now. What this does, you see it all across the board. Roads are collapsing, infrastructure, people are being deleted on the roads, potholes, and all of that. The quality of life per individual remains poor, and systems never become scalable wherein everyone can enjoy a sort of wealth or a sort of ease of mind wherein there's just not so much weird tendencies that exist. And then I come to a lovely education. Trains our brain for short term thinking. Our whole education system is focused on memorizing everything to the hilt for no effing reason. We don't focus on making people masters. So, a reason the movie Three Idiots, I think that painter movie in which Amir Khan only acted, wherein the child was a painter, wherein he was focusing on mastery. So, I think that appealed to a lot of heart. Why? Because he chose a craft in which he wanted to master himself, not memorize as per the standard idiots around him. Anyhow, coming back to the education system, so you see that we prioritize marks, how much one can score, without even genuinely understanding that is this something that would help me in my life long term, or how I can make this practically feasible. So I've seen small kids talking that I want to achieve 90, 95%. Nothing wrong with it. The parents want them to achieve those marks so that they can save face in society, instead of actually training their children to love that pursuit of education, develop an understanding of sorts, so that that education can blossom in their own lives. We value exams over genuine skill building in our life. And then you see all of this just ripples down to an outcome based mindset wherein whatever the outcome is, we'll just attach a lot of identity, self worth to it instead of genuinely loving the process. Students, all of us have been students in our education system, learn from childhood that you must pass this exam, ho jayega. Like it would just happen. Not build genuine competence which would serve you in real life. A lot of people, or let's say a lot of businessmen, are successful in the real life because they are street smarts. They have learned from the streets, whereas some idiots have just learned in the classroom, not looked out at how is it that real life is working. So later in life, what happens? People keep on chasing certificates for no effing reason, not genuine capability, just finding these shortcuts to go through the days, pass through the seasons, instead of building a long-term future for themselves, not having any depth from a skill perspective. And then due to all of this, you see that we don't like rewarding ourselves in the long term. Due to all of this education, how parents come into the picture, they fear gap years. We see a lot of people working in the corporate spaces and things like that. Like this mindset exists that if he has had a gap, he might be an a-hole, he might be wasting his time. We don't employ empathy because we're just too many. And due to all of this, our parents also panic, and then they train children accordingly. They feel that your success would be delayed, your income would be uncertain, this progress, whatever you're making in whatever way, it seems invisible. What's the outcome and all of that? Their only fundamental question is, what would people say? You're wasting your time and things like that. But to become a master, or let's say becoming excellent in a field, requires long, empty years wherein no one is clapping, you're doubting, you're moving through uncertainty, insecurity, and all of that. And there's like no social proof, even if you want to validate yourself on a social level. It's just invisibly grinding. Sometimes it feels like just throwing the dart out in a fog of sorts. I think the problem is we can work very hard. We don't have any problem working hard, but it's just about we cannot work hard without seeing any immediate results in our vicinity. We want to work hard while seeing these viable returns coming all together. And then all of this creates an ecosystem. The whole media is also involved in it, wherein they're just capitalizing on outrage, the short term dopamine bursts that you're getting. You see, from a media perspective, it rewards controversies, outrage, instant drama, viral movements. And then you see all these kids, all of them who are wanting to become influencers and whatnot. I hate this word influencer, but anyhow, they're all just talking about quick fame, going viral, and all of that. Nobody wants to go through that grind of 10-year journey to build something of worth, to create, let's say, content that impacts someone else's life, but just quick virality moments, either showing through their body, doing some idiotic act, or eating XYZ things. You are pretty aware of a lot of influencers. But long term thinking requires that you're just comfortable being bored day in and day out, and you're just quietly mastering your craft. But the public learns through to this media outrage that we must just react all the time, compulsively react instead of genuinely responding to the situation. And people just move on like this. News stay in for a couple of days, and then we just keep on forgetting what has happened. We just like outraging in the short term. Long term, like all those narratives building for the long term just takes a backseat. And if I show you like a documentary that this is his 10-year journey, you yourself would be bored. Now, if I talk about some other Asian countries, predominantly China, because probably the population they have had is much equal to us. And if you look at the average life from prosperity perspective, is not starving very much. They're very focused on becoming the masters of the world, which they have, I think, in a lot of ways. Even Japan, for that matter, even South Korea, for that matter, all of these countries think in terms of generation, what systems they can scale, how much technology they can widen to improve the quality of each individual. And they accept whatever delayed gratification would come, whatever would come in the long term. There's a sense of discipline to their actions, a sense of richness in their boredom. Whereas we as Indians just, you see, prefer emotional highs, even with the recent Messi tour. How many people were just breaking a lot of things? There was like a wave of emotionality and sentimentality. No one talks about the deeper problems about the sports, the football clubs, and all of that which are suffering. And you see again this whole culture of hero worship, treating someone larger than life. It all just comes down because we want to prioritize short term virality, short term that we have clicked pictures with so and so person. And we believe a lot in miracles that someone someplace might have done something. There's some grace or whatnot happening. But in reality, every one of the people who is on the top, either they're narcissists, psychopaths, have a lot of privilege or have genuinely worked hard. They're like 3 to 4 categories. So you can just make out from people by the way they carry themselves. But anyway, coming back to this point, the idea is that the long term thinking, it requires an emotional maturity wherein you're just not reacting to these waves but having a long term focus that what is it that I want to do and where is it that I want to go. Whereas short term thinking survives on emotional impulse. That's why a lot of media houses and all of that capitalizes on it. And then if I bring in the masculinity angle, the stability angle, so you see that masculinity is not aggression. It's having a sort of patience, a sort of stability amidst the uncertainty that's going on. A lot of males in particular are very weak because we constantly live for validation. We need applause from people. We need a sense of certainty. So nothing wrong with certainty, but long-term thinking from the context that I'm talking in this video requires that you're very uncomfortable in uncertainty, and then In general, you have a check for your emotions. Of course, sometimes things do go berserk. I'm not saying that you have to be 100% monk and all of that, but at least on a scale of 100, you can always be on an 80-20 or a 90-10 from the perspective of short term versus long term and things like that. So people who can delay gratification build their future from the perspective that they can keep on training without any attention. The similar analogy of a gym, we can keep on building. Strong males can keep on building without a sense of praise that they're getting, and they can keep on waiting without a sense of panic. You also see that this is being percolated in a stock market. We immediately want to cash in, cash out, and gain quick rewards instead of building for the long term. So you just need to train this muscle. And you see how the world sees us is mostly as consumers because we're just too many in number. They don't see us as genuine builders. Consumers want quick pleasures. They want to avoid responsibilities and outsource this thinking to some other person. Whereas a builder just sits through that pain, suffers upfront, plans long and delays the reward. They take responsibility and think for themselves that what is it that makes sense to them. You see, like from a consumption perspective, there's so much hype when the new gadgets release. People buy certain things on EMIs. We want to show off on our lifestyles, on the big fat Indian weddings, which is very famous, on signaling status to other people, whereas long-term thinkers genuinely focus on creating genuine value. Even if they're going into relationships, weddings, they won't do it for the noise, but just for themselves. They would value a sense of depth, a sense of scalable system building. So this is again a choice, a cultural choice. Now, I can just keep on going on talking about it, but how this mindset percolates is you see that how one sport, which is cricket in particular, has a monopoly over all other sports. If I come into our famous exams, how one government exam we just want to crack, there's like a lot of obsession around that. Want safe careers, EMI lifestyles, keep on living this life wherein we're just surviving and not living, and having a sense of outrage from a mob perspective. You see this online as well, that every day people want to just cancel people left and right. No matter how different they are, they might be different perspectives. But instead of employing empathy, we just want to not live and also not let live. So always just prioritizing short-term emotion instead of long-term intelligence. So now what can you do? I think I've talked a lot about different factors from a high-level perspective. So firstly, see, if you want a life that is different, you'll have to be very comfortable in making choices that are different from others. This is plain common logic sense. If you want a different life, just choose depth over short-term trivia. Choose patience. Choose boredom, like being very comfortable in the small repetitive day-to-day tasks which are connected to your long-term vision, and choose these long-term visions. Think in decades but executes in weeks. Stop asking how soon would I get this, but maybe a question to reframe your thinking would be what would happen of this action or this work that I'm doing 10 years, 20 years down the line. The man or the men who think like this, they can just always dominate short-term attention economy, short-term world, and then you'll see you just start becoming different and you won't have to struggle endlessly amidst so many different things in life. And if you're a parent, unfortunately, how one can train their children, because a lot of parenting is also responsible for the type of people that we're bringing in and creating healthy, responsible society. So if you see that you have been struggling with a lot of things, maybe your child is taking time to learn things, maybe he might be having ADD and whatnot, like sensitive things, please just don't bash them. It's about understanding what works from them from an empathetic lens, and then just training them to help them nurture in their own skill set whatever makes them unique, just helping them nurture that quality. And I'm sure that you've had toxic parents where you might feel that no one would have understood you. It's okay, like whatever has happened, but right now the choice to capitalize on your own unique and weird strength exists within you. So I feel we don't lack talent. In a population of 150 crore, there are like a lot of talented people that can just come out. We just lack the patience to execute things long term. And if we become a society or addicted to shortcuts, jugaads and all of that, we will never build greatness and never lead the world in a way wherein we are just contributing. Like the ancient India used to contribute a lot of things to the world, but right now that has just flipped. We are not contributing a lot because of the whole ecosystem and culture that we have. So I think the whole premise of this video is building long-term thinking to your actions and just prioritizing the long-term over the short-term, no matter what anyone says, because it deepens your character. It's sort of a character trait. And until we as Indians take pride in it, we as Indians learn that we want to prioritize long term, we'll keep on chasing these parameters being exploited by our exploiters, because our exploiters know that we just like to outburst in the short term. We never talk about fixing systems from a long term perspective, or even creating them for that matter. But anyhow, this was a video I wanted to share with you all. Let me know what you feel about it. What are your learnings? What limitations have you broken? Do treat this comment section as a diary entry, that what is the work that you have done. And yeah, if you feel like having a one-on-one conversation with me wherein you want to talk a lot deeply, respecting your privacy, feel free to book a call with me. Send me an email. I'll be happy to share all the details with you. So until then, you stay awesome. Let me know how you'll prioritize long-term thinking. And yeah, this is Devi Shishpindra from Debu Ki Dastak signing off. Cheers. Bye.